Welcome to the Strength and Knowledge. We're the three best friends there ever was. Today we have Mike Consalvi back with us, which me and Mike had an interesting conversation about lifting, which is his niche. He's really good at it, so I thought I'd ask him for some tips. And so, really, the question that came out to Mike was, I'm working with younger athletes. I got like an eighth grader, and ninth grader, and I was asking Mike, if I do a hang shrug, or should I do a shrug pull from the blocks or from the hang position? That was my question.
Right. And you're teaching, let me get a little more detail on it. What are you teaching them to clean?
Yeah, I want to get them to clean. So I'm trying to get them to understand the triple extension, where they need to be in that triple extension. And so my question and my thought process was getting them in that shrug position, up tall. It's like a very millimeter slight pause at the top, but would it be more beneficial from the blocks or would it be more beneficial from the hang?
Probably when they're starting out, I would say from the hang, so they can understand how to get it to the hip from there. When you're using blocks is used mainly for transfer underneath the bar. So when you're trying to learn how to, or if you're practicing and drilling speed under the bar, you're going to go from the blocks, because going from the block position 2 or going from the hang, or I'm sorry, going from position 2 if you're going from the floor from a full clean. What you're not getting on the blocks is the leg drive. So if you were to clean from the floor, right, once it gets to, you start with your legs, drive with your legs, the bar picks up speed. Now it's in position 2 at the top of your knee, right? That's where the bar is starting when you go to position 2 from the blocks, right? So if you're using blocks, it's going to be right above your knee. Now, what you don't have is vertical trajectory of the bar at this point. So it's just at a dead stop at the top of your knee. So that bar, once you get it to your hip and then above, it's not going to go as high because you don't have that leg drive that you have when you're going from the floor. So the bar doesn't go as high, which means you need to get under it faster. So blocks is used to practice that transition underneath the bar. So if they can't transition underneath the bar in the first place, probably wouldn't start them with cleans from the block. So like I said before, first thing they want to learn if they're learning how to clean is how to catch it, how to transition under it, right? How to turn over into that front rack position. Because if you can't catch it, you can't clean it, right? So yeah, I would start from the hang. I think the hang would also help them to develop some grip strength and some posterior chain strength as well.
So, going back to you also mentioned that you'd probably even just start with position 1 before you even started doing because that to you would be like an accessory work, right? So you can kind of talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So always, I would start from position 1. If you're not familiar with what position 1 is, position 1 would be standing upright. You're bent at the hips and knees, so you're going to have a little bit of ankle flexion as well. But your torso is vertical, completely vertical, and the bar is right on your hip line, where would be the finishing part of your pull, right? So that's position 1. So bent at the hips and knees and ankles, but the torso is vertical, and from there you're just it'll be in your hip pocket, and then from there you're just going to triple extend, keeping your torso vertical the whole time. From that position, you're going to triple extend, keep the bar close to your body, and then transition under it. So that would be position 1. That's where I would start from, because like I said, learning how to turn over and catch first would be the most important thing when you're teaching to clean. And from the hip, you're going to have the shortest length. as opposed to going from the ground. The ground would be further, right? That it would be a longer movement when you're going from the ground. So the longer the movement, um, the more possibility there is for error. The more room there is for error when the movement is longer. So you keep the movement short. You teach them where the hip is, and you practice turnover and catch underneath the bar. Um, and then you would go down to position 2. Then you would go down to position 3.
So, Marshall, I guess my question is, what was your thought process of when you originally asked Mike? It was, what was your thought process of going from the hang, or what was your thought process of going to the blocks? Because you've always said, as long as you're a strength coach, as long as you have a reason and a purpose for the movement, it's not necessarily our wrong way to do it. So I guess what was your thought on both? Because I know when we went through PC, we did that from the hang. Obviously, we didn't have blocks, but we were kind of having trouble with the kids getting up tall. So we're just like, well, maybe they should just do a pause on the shrug. But not thinking about it, going from that hang position, even though they're getting a shorter range of motion, maybe it's not necessarily a 4 RDL or 4, but they get good quality hinge motions every time they do that position. I feel like that will be an added benefit, especially at age middle school or even early on in high school, of getting them to get really good at hinging. Will carry on to, if you get good at hinge, you probably can get pretty good at getting the starting position on the blocks. Where if you can probably get people in the starting position of the blocks, but you probably can't get them to hinge. At just my thought process of thinking. So I guess I was asking where you're at on that.
Well, usually, I'm not worried about the hinge. I just do a banded hinge prep. I get them ready to go right there.
Yeah, here we go.
Just kidding. So my thought process was that when I talked to Mike about this, like the first time, like way back when we worked together, I mean, it was kind of like a no shit moment, but it was just like, you should be at position 1, then position 2, then get to position 3. The less the bar has to travel, the more you work on technique, the better that the process is going to go when you have to go through more ranges of motion. So I was thinking, like in a hinge position, like you said, Aaron, like you got to go into a hinge and then come back out of it into a triple extension to get the shrug, or if you're going for a catch, whatever. So I was thinking, like if a block is being utilized, there's less range of motion that you have to go through. You're only going vertical. So I thought maybe that would be an easier way to clean up that process of just getting the triple extension to a big shrug and not have to worry about that hinge situation that might, make the bar path go off, whatever the case may be with a given athlete. But with the younger population, I was just thinking maybe it would be more beneficial. But I mean, I see the benefits of just going with, position 1 and then kind of working your way from there.
Yeah, if you're adding in the shrugs, and what would you go to after the shrug, right? If you're trying to teach a clean, you're going from hang or wherever, and you get to your hip and you're teaching the shrug, right? Where do you go from there? Then I guess you would teach the high pull, right?
Which is, see, I'm not a big fan of the high pull because, athletes will go towards triple extension and then they drop, like they don't get into triple extension. They try to get underneath the bar.
Yeah, right.
This over video,
Well,
but they'll like pop down more than like get up and then work themselves underneath the bar. They'll just kind of like pop down like that. So I'm not a big fan of like that high pull. I would go from a shrug to a clean. Obviously, honestly, that's like how I would view it or think about it.
Yeah, I don't think you have to coach the shrug, because if you're going to pull up, you're going to shrug naturally. You're going to do it. No one's going to come here and then
just reverse curl.
yeah, it's going to be a shrug and a high pull. And you don't really have to, I don't really think you have to coach those things. I would tell them to focus on keeping the bar close to the body. So as you're coming up, you want to pull that bar right up the front of your chest, right? And the shoulders will go back. Well, you should, have your back nice and tight anyway. But to do that, the shoulders will go back and up, keeping the bar close. And keeping the bar close will help them to transition under it, keeps the bar from getting too far away, and then maybe you drop it forward or you catch it forward on your feet. But I think the shrug comes naturally in the turnover from the pull to the catch. The shrug should come naturally.
So, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask you would you you said you don't have to coach the shrug at all. Would you go into a high pull, kind of go like from a hang, maybe like a clean pull type thing into a high pull, telling them or giving that cue to keep the bar close so they kind of get that feel, so that when you start to transition, would you kind of follow that progression instead of going like shrug, then high pull, then under?
Yeah, what I'll usually do is, if people don't understand, a lot of times if you get somebody that's never seen it or something like that, and you tell them to go from the hip to the, shoulders, it's a reverse curl catch, right? So then I would practice that with them, trying to get them to understand that it's a pull that's high, keeping the elbows up high, internally rotated, keeping the bar close, do some of those with them, right? And then just move on to the clean, to the catch where it's, you're keeping it close and then underneath. But you don't have to do like 2 weeks of practice of this before you go to a catch position. They can usually understand it. You give them a couple drills, and then they'll start to get it. And then you just tell them, you teach them how to, transition to go under the bar, but to receive it. But and then after that, high pulls would become an accessory movement. High pulls would be an accessory movement, and not where you pull yourself down underneath, but trying to keep those hips straight and vertical while you're doing the high pull. But even if when the weight gets heavier, you can't always do that. So maybe you will pull yourself down a little bit against the bar. And it's okay. I know a little bit of it is fine. As long as you're efficient. But Marshall, I know what you're talking about. Like the college weight room football high pull. And yeah, that's not good.
Right.
That's not.
I think I'm kind of just.
Now, it probably does help to build a lot of strength in the shoulders and in the upper back. You know what I mean? And in the core and lower back and stuff. And I think that is beneficial. But if you're using that and you're not coaching it correctly, it's not going to transition to your clean. It's not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you could definitely get some. I mean, that's a pretty just like raw power movement. So you can definitely get some strength and some size out of it in the upper body, but it's not going to transition to your clean unless you're executing it properly. Right. So if that's your intention, if you're doing it because you want it to transfer, then it has to be executed and coached properly. If you just want them to pull heavy weight as high as they can, just to get huge, then that's okay if that's why you're doing it. But Olympic weightlifters won't do it like that, but college football players do that a lot.
It's kind of that separation of concerns. What are you going for? What's the context? What do you kind of care about more or less? You're not, like you said, with football guys, you're training football players. You're not training like Olympic weightlifters. You're trying to, you might be going for one thing versus another. So that makes sense. Kind of that separation of like context.
Yeah.
Because even in my own training, I started in upright rows. Because, back in the day, you always hear, upright rows are terrible. But then like a year or two ago, I'm like, you do this motion in cleans, you do this motion. I'm like, so it's not terrible. So I've been doing it because I'm like, I need to get a jacked upper back for my bench, for my squat. I've been doing upright rows. I'm like, well, I can only do strict of like 145, 155, just some lightweight. But now I'm kind of starting to get a little heavy-jeevy jerk so I can get some weight like Marshall Bennett and getting up to 185. But like Mike was saying, I'm just doing it just so I can get a strong upper back. I'm not necessarily doing it to transfer over my cleans because we already know I'm stronger than Derek Stork already. But
I was about to ask, are you still hand cleaning like 315? Or
I'll always be able to clean 315 as long as I bench 500. Louis Simmons, baby. Louis Simmons.
Land squatting 700 and deadlifting close to 7 doesn't hurt.
Well, my question, talking about this, it might be completely out of the thing, but at what point, Mike, if you're coaching an athlete, I know you're pretty Olympic lifting, but at what point, like, have you ever been to an athlete where like this athlete just does not get Olympic lifting no matter what I do? He just cannot get, let's say you try and teach a clean, terrible front rack. We've done a bunch of mobility and you're like, well, do you just go to high pull? Do you just go jump shrug and leave him there? Or do you ever try and get him to back into cleans? I guess, the thing is, well, you hear people going through, oh yeah, I'll just do med balls and jumps with that guy. Or I guess my question is, at what point is it mobility? Then you just stick at the high pull and jump squat, or jump shrug, or do you keep trying to work on him to catch in that front rack?
I know when I was at UConn, we did a lot of powers. We only did powers. At Missouri State, we did full and we did powers, but we did full cleans there. And I mean, gosh, like 90% of the team is not good at it. They're not great at it. And they might be strong and do a lot of weight. It's not always the prettiest. You know what I mean? It's gonna look raw a lot. And the other thing is I'll when I'm training, and obviously I train Olympic lifting and that's it. I mean, I spend a lot of time on it, so it gets efficient, it gets better. I mean, sometimes my lifts are like 3.5 hours long, and all I did was like clean and squat and snatch. You know what I mean? That's it. So I get a lot of time doing it. In college football, I mean, you don't get as much time. You get like an hour and a half for a lift tops, and you've got 50. Maybe not 50, maybe I'm exaggerating, but maybe not really exaggerating that much. But let's say there's like 10 exercises on there. You know what I mean? Plus the warm up, plus the foam, all this stuff, So you don't get that much time when you're in your clean. So are they going to get as good as an Olympic lifter? Probably not. But they're going to produce a lot of force fast through the floor, and they're going to get benefits from that. And they'll probably get more mobile just by moving around the barbell. If they don't really have good lat flexibility or in their shoulders, in their wrist, that stuff will start to open up the more they do it, and it won't look pretty like at the beginning. But you're just teaching them the movement. You got to be really, really patient with it. Teach them the movement first. Once they get good at it, you feel like you can load it up, then load it up. A lot of guys have trouble. Usually where you see it is guys, they don't, I don't know how else to say it, but they don't have the balls to drop underneath. You know what I mean? You got to want to do that. If you're, I do it because I want to do it. You know what I mean? So I'm dropping under heavyweight. You know what I mean? But these guys, they're, they didn't come there to lift Olympic weightlifting or to do Olympic weightlifting. They know they're going to lift, but they don't know what the hell they're going to do when they walk in the door. But you got it to get really good at Olympic weightlifting. You have to really want to do it, just like in powerlifting, right? You're not going to get under 800 pounds on the bar just cause. You got to want to do that, all right? Because that shit's scary. You know what I mean? When you start lifting a certain amount of weight, it gets scary sometimes. But that's like that's mental toughness right there. You got to just go and do it. You know what I mean? It's frightening, but you got to go and do it. So these kids, a lot of the times, they can probably lift a lot more if they had more time to get efficient with it, and if they were only focused on Olympic lifting. A lot of guys, like even Saquon Barkley, if you watch, you guys seen his clean? Everybody's seen his clean. If you're a strength and conditioning coach and you haven't seen the video of Saquon Barkley's
405
clean at Penn State, You should go watch it. He cleans 405. I mean, the guy's strong as a horse. Awful technique. Like, better than most people, right, in a college weight room. But, from an Olympic weightlifting point of view, terrible technique, but he has incredible power. I mean, to be able to lift 405 with shitty form, with no lifters on, just shoes, right? Probably no hook grip. I'm sure he didn't tape up his thumbs and hook grip. He just grip it and rip it. And that man is strong. Strong.
Oh, yeah. So you had like the
You
whole
know what I mean?
kind of the splits, the death grip at the top, trying to like all that stuff. Like when you're talking about bad technique.
Like his butt shoots way up in the air and he just pulls it with his back. But he's just deathly strong. So he, kills it. And if that dude wanted to be an Olympic weightlifter and really learn how, he would probably break every world record and be the greatest lifter of all time. But I'd rather be running back for the New York Giants and make millions of dollars anyway. But getting back to your question, I would keep doing it. You're not going to cut somebody off and be like, you know what, you just don't get it. You suck. You know what I mean? Because there's guys that are never going to squat either. There's guys that will never reach 90 degrees in 4 years. And they never will lift heavy weight in 4 years. But you're not going to cut them off of a squat. You know what I mean? You're not going to cut them off of a bench press just because they're not getting good at it or anything like that. I would just keep teaching it. They'll get better. Even if it's minimally, they'll get better. Their mobility will get better. Even if it's minimally, it'll still get better. And they're producing they're producing a lot of force through the ground. So even if it's not very good, they're still going to get stronger from it. Just make sure it's safe. Make sure no one's getting hurt. Right.
I was going to say, even like thinking about kind of some common kind of situations that strength coaches, especially at the college level or college football level, deal with is like, maybe you have a room full of guys and maybe you're not lucky enough to have enough time or a weight room to like yourself or something like that. And so it's like kind of a mixed group. You have offense and defense lifting together, all that stuff. Everyone's lifting together and everyone can get it except for like some of these bigger lineman guys who just like don't have the wrist flexibility or lat flexibility, again, that front rack position. Would you maybe kind of like have them, and maybe even if it's only like a few guys who just really can't get into that position, would you almost like kind of separate those guys to do something else while you're still working on kind of on the side, working on them getting into that position to get more comfortable? Or would you just have them like maybe drop down in weight to get in that position? Or like, how would you kind of go about?
I would probably have them keep doing what they're doing, do a weight you can handle. Right. But also if there's other guys in the room that are doing better than him that don't need as much coaching on it, then I'm just going to spend more time with them, cueing and trying out different cues to see what can help them. But yeah, I would still have them do it.
So there's no regression in your mind that you would do outside of like a clean or anything that's an Olympic movement?
Well, I mean, sure. I didn't say that.
No, I'm asking.
Yeah, Melo, he didn't fucking say that, dude.
I'm not saying that you said that, but I'm just asking.
Oh my gosh, just putting
part of me being over there with him, giving him extra coaching, might be a some kind of regression really quickly or some drilling to get back into it. But I mean, you gotta keep doing it. The only way you're gonna ever catch a front rack or get it in front rack is if you consistently do front rack. I posted a video of me squatting, front squatting the other day or a month ago or something. It was like a pulse front squat. So I'm sitting at the bottom for like 7 seconds and then I come up and someone DM'd me like, dude, how do you get so comfortable in that front rack position? Because you're just chilling at the bottom of that front squat, paused, right? And like you're totally upright in front rack position. And I was like, he's like, how do you do that? Because I can't really get in front rack position. And I said, okay, how often do you do front squats? And he goes, not very often. I said, okay, that's why. You know what I mean? Because you don't do it. If you don't do front rack, you're gonna suck at front rack. So the more even and if you don't do it, you're gonna suck when you start doing it. But the more you do it, the better you get at it, just like anything else. It's gonna open up your lats, your wrist flexibility. There's really nothing better for it. You can stretch your lats all you want. You stretch your wrists out all you want, your forearms. You can do all these extra stretches to try to improve your front rack, but the only thing that's going to improve your front rack is doing front rack, right? And it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but you just got to grin and bear it if that's what you want to do. If you want to get your front rack better, then you got to just work through it, work through the awkwardness at first and keep doing it. And it will get better. And I've seen people get better by doing that, but you know what I mean?
God bless.
Thank you, Marshall. I agree.
But
I agree with that, especially
so here's one for you. So if it might be easier with younger kids who are just starting out, or just anybody, it doesn't have to be young kids, anybody who's just starting out. Teach them the snatch first. And it doesn't have to be from it doesn't have to be a full snatch, just be a power snatch. Because you have a lot of people, we've all seen it. I've had a lot of people, you guys have a lot of people where they can't get in that front rack position. That's what we're talking about right now. It's a lot easier for people to get in a wide grip overhead position than it is a front rack position. I would say most people can do this. Most people can do that, I would say. And also that would help to stretch out and mobilize everything in the arm, right? The biceps, the chest, the pecs and everything, lats, all that stuff. So you probably get some overhead mobility work just by doing some overhead holds or snatch hold or power snatches or anything like that. So yeah, if you did like a power snatch, so you're still getting that triple extension and you're catching overhead. So for something like football players, you know, they probably won't ever need to do a full snatch where they I mean, at least I wouldn't spend too much time doing full snatch with college athletes, because that's when it gets really technical, is when you're starting to drop under the bar and catch it super low. That's when it gets technical. So just hitting a power snatch though, I would say most athletes would be able to hit a power snatch. Even if it's, you know, from the hang or from position one. I think that would be a good way to generate some of that, or do triple extension and generate some of that force through the floor, and then also increase their shoulder mobility and flexibility by catching overhead and snatch.
Have you done a lot of? Go ahead, Marshall.
No, you go ahead, Aaron.
Okay, I appreciate you. I was saying, have you done a lot of or any? Jesus Christ, I'm gonna sneeze. Close grip snatch, because I know a lot of times at SIU.
Bless you.
It's about.
Bless you.
We had a lot of our skills do shoulder width snatches from a hang position. So I guess my question was, have you ever done any of those with athletes?
I've never done that. I've never performed that myself. I've also never taught it. Nah, I don't have any experience with that. Why did you guys do that?
From what I've been talking, when I talked to him, he just said it was more shoulder friendly, and obviously it's a longer range of motion, so you have to produce a lot of power, a lot of force to get that bar overhead.
Right. The weights will be lighter though.
Of course,
obviously.
Yes.
So I mean, you know, you have your either or.
Yeah, I would say
you're probably not going to produce as much power as if you had a lot of weight on the bar, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, shoulder. It's easier on the shoulders than what a wide grip snatch.
Wider grip, yeah. What he told me. Who knows? I don't snatch.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. You know, it looks like snatch is something that looks like it's very dangerous for your shoulders, but I think it's good for your shoulders. I think it's very good for your shoulders. They get strong as shit.
Yeah.
And
Say.
to be able to stabilize that kind of weight overhead,
You gotta be strong.
you have to have really strong and healthy shoulders to do that. If snatch was bad for your shoulders, there would be no Olympic weightlifting because everyone would destroy their shoulders the first when they were trying out the snatch. You know what I mean? It's going to be awkward for everybody. I mean, I wasn't good at it either when I started, but just doing snatch got me better at snatch, got my shoulder mobility better. And then, you know, usually when I miss reps, it's because I suck and not because I have shitty shoulder mobility. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Most of the time.
I think a lot of people shy away from it because they think it's a little bit because of like what you said. It looks more dangerous than a clean.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's interesting that you say, you know, instead of doing a clean, do a snatch. It's probably easier and a little bit more comfortable for most athletes to get in that position. It's interesting. I like that take. I think that's an interesting take.
Go ahead and try it with some of your young athletes, Marshall, and I think you'd be surprised. You'd be like, oh, wow. You know, they're going to pick that up a lot quicker than they will pick up a clean. Because, like I said, people can't get in that front rack position. So, yeah, try that. Try the snatch.
Limit the weight even more. Go close grip snatch, Marshall. Who do you want to believe? The power lifter or the Olympic lifter? I don't know. Who do you want to believe?
Go with the Olympic lifter. I mean,
you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I got that Louis Simmons book. If you want to read
it.
Yeah, he's talking about snatches and cleans all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Mike, where can people find you?
Instagram, mconsalvi22.
That's
pretty much it. I got an Instagram. I don't have a Twitter, but I post a lot of lifting videos on there if you want to go check it out.
All right. Well, Mike, we appreciate your time. Thank you guys for this week's episode of Strength of Knowledge.